the challenges of implementing and enforcing regulations, global practices.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our panelists to join. So we'll start with Eric, Mariya, and Kral.
Hi, thanks for having us.
So we have a very short time here, so we need to start off immediately, and I'll start by asking each and every one of you to introduce yourself in 1 minute.
My name is Eric. I'm the CEO of AAA. AAA is a Singapore headquarter crypto payment gateway with presence in Europe and in the US. And we're helping merchants, businesses to accept crypto without having them to touch crypto at any point in time.
Hello, my name is Mariya Spartalis. I'm a wealth manager and a crypto banker over 20 years in Austria and now in Switzerland. I'm a partner of family office and asset management company Terreus Capital in Zurich, Switzerland. I've been director of the first crypto bank Switzerland, and right now we are helping wealth management wealthy clients to open normal and crypto accounts in different banks in Switzerland, Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, and around Europe.
Hello, my name is Przemysław Kral. I'm a CEO of Zonda Crypto Exchange. And I think the biggest crypto exchange in Central and Eastern European Union, with license in Estonia, with license in Canada, with virtual asset service provider registration in Italy, Slovakia, Bulgaria, and on a final approach in Switzerland as well. Except that I'm a lawyer as well.
Thank you very much, everyone. Just a brief introduction of myself. I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm a partner at WH Partners, which is a law firm that has offices in Malta and Dubai. And basically, I was also a former regulator, and I was the chief regulatory officer of the Malta Gaming Authority. Spent there 6 years. So without further ado, I'd like to attack the topic we have today head on. And as a former regulator, indeed, my general comment here would be that, look, having been a regulator, I have seen regulation being implemented, and while it is very crucial to achieve the right balance between protection of the consumer, but also at the same time ensuring that the regulation does not stifle innovation, we also have to take into consideration the enforcement measures. So if you don't have proper enforcement, there is no way that you're going to have a successful regulatory framework. Because if there's no enforcement, you'll have bad actors falling off the wagon and actually ruining the whole ecosystem for you. So I'll start by asking some questions to my panelists, and please always keep in mind that we only have 16 minutes left. So the first question I have for you is, give me one reason why you think that regulation is necessary. I like to call it a necessary evil. Eric.
One reason in the crypto space, obviously, the most important risk is money laundering, terrorist financing. So that to me, that's the first reason. And most of the regulation around the world today are not about consumer protection when it comes to crypto, but are really about AML CFT. And I think it was the right thing from the regulators to start with fixing this issue first, And now that we have the case of FTX and so on, I think they will now look into consumer protection as well.
Sorry to butt in here, but have they fixed the AML issue?
It depends on the jurisdiction. I've been lucky to start the company in Singapore, where we've been having a proper licensing framework for now 3 years, where we have a proper payments institution regime with a clear guidelines on crypto, and as such, I truly believe that it's still way easier to launder money through the traditional banking system than through crypto.
Okay, fair enough. Very good point. Mariya?
So being taking care of wealthy investors and private clients and their companies, I want to say that crypto regulation, first of all, is protection not to lose wealth and money. And being director of a crypto bank and working with the crypto banks now, I want to say that it's very safe for investors and for clients to keep money in the banks and not only on the platforms, which can be literally robbed. And it's just secure for the clients, the crypto regulations. So I'm on the side of investors, and I think it's very important to keep money in crypto banks, not only on platforms, to be on secure side.
So, in my opinion, good regulation increase adoption of crypto. So, because people are afraid, so of course it need to be a wise regulation, because all over the world we have got good and bad regulations, and we know it exactly from the practical point of view. The more market is regulated in an intelligent way, the adoption of crypto increases. So that's the point, in my opinion.
I really agree with that statement. Actually, I think that for crypto to go literally to go viral and being used by the public in general, we definitely need regulation, because today the mentality is that if you're not regulated, I will not deal with you. And it's not from the retail customer as such, but rather from other institutions. So being regulated gives you the advantage of being able to deal with other institutional operators. Okay, so that was interesting. So how can we achieve the right balance between having strong regulation while also allowing room for innovation and growth? We all know that regulation, unfortunately, does stifle innovation, whether we like it or not. It pulls some brakes, and those brakes slow the car down. And sometimes it's necessary to slow the car down, but in most cases, the car is not being used to its top potential. So what is your opinion about this, and how this balance can be achieved?
Can I say? I think that this balance will go towards the regulation, and it will not probably be achieved, because as we see also in Dubai and in different countries, the crypto regulation process increase, and finally this area will be simply regulated, and we will go to different level. This is my opinion. So I think it's probably a longer process, but at the very end it will be transparent, regulated, and plausible, and go out of all gray zones.
Hello? Sorry, but I agree with you, but I think it's a good thing that, for instance, in the UAE, we're getting more regulation. You know, the fact that now VARA has been issuing some of their guidelines and so on, and my impression is that what we're seeing is that it's relatively pro-business from what we saw, where all the regulation we're seeing, for instance, in the European Union, seems like very backward and very really impacting the innovation.
Yes, having this experience in Europe, we can say that, of course, they were pioneers. For example, in Germany, this one of the most best crypto-regulated countries. All the laws they start at 2013. And Switzerland is quite advanced in meaning of tax and crypto regulation. But of course, Dubai right now use the moment and attract a lot of investors in crypto area by adopting the new laws and giving a new chance. And also, I would say it's a quite maybe like politically neutral platform where a lot of investors join right now during the whole situation in the world, and it's just amazing time and to start the crypto business here. It's just good timing, and for sure that it will be more advanced here because they will take all bad and good experience of Europe and will achieve much better results, I guess.
I'm not such an optimist. In my opinion, when the MiCA will be implemented as it is now, it will completely kill the business in Europe because this regulation needs to be, let's say, based on a practical knowledge. And so far it is not based on a practical knowledge. So for the regulators, what I would suggest is to speak more and more with those who fight with the regulation all the time, applying for the new licenses, etc. There is because most of the regulators are from the traditional financial world, and they don't understand crypto, maybe not at all, but they are learning. They should learn more rapidly, because if the regulation will not be based on a practical knowledge, it will completely kill the business. So there need to be an equilibrium point between regulation and between letting the business go.
And it's not only the regulators who don't understand, it's also sometimes the lawmakers, at Brussels and so on, where we're saying some stupid things. It feels like, for instance, looking at issuing a euro stablecoin. What is amazing, pretty sad for Europe, is that the first euro stablecoin is actually issued by an American company. That sounds like totally incredible.
Indeed, and actually something that I'd like to tie in with is that it seems like we haven't learned our lesson from the failures of the financial services system, right? So if we look at how banks are regulated, well, this industry was created because of the failure of the regulatory framework for banks. The fact that banks do not keep the funds in place for clients, but rather invest them in risky stuff, and even sometimes not so risky stuff, is a risk for the users. And making use of a system that has failed us time and time again, until last week it has failed us again, I believe that ultimately we have to rethink, as you said, we have to come up with a completely new regulatory framework. The positive thing, for example, with MiCA is that they have tried to emulate more the financial institution framework, which has worked much better in Europe than the banking method. So that might be a positive. We'll only know once MiCA starts working and a few years pass. So my next question is, how can legislators and policymakers ensure effective enforcement, and what should be avoided?
Yeah, so it's a very good question, and when there is a politics, there is lack of professionalism normally. So the idea is that the first step is education. Most of those people who regulate anything should have knowledge. So the first step is education. Most of the law creators shall be educated and shall have knowledge about what they regulate. In practice, it's not always like this. So more experts, more academies, and more education.
On the enforcement side, I think you have a great point because you don't always have a very level playing field because you would have players regulated and really following the regulation, while some people might have a license, but they are not fully checking, fully following the regulation, and that creates an imbalance, and that also can create issues and bad reputation for the people following the regulation. And usually most of the regulators, they don't have enough resources to actually do audits. One of the good practice I saw, for instance, was to mandate mandatory external audits on a yearly basis. That can be one of the issue to make sure it's properly enforced.
Very good point, although again, with yearly audits, you're increasing the compliance costs of operators, which is making life more difficult for smaller guys. But anyway, so before I ask my last question, we only have 4 minutes left. So are there any questions from the floor? Gordon, they're going to bring you the microphone, the nice flashy microphone? No. Okay, you can take my microphone.
I'm happy to see some good friends on the stage, and it's an honor to have you visit us here in Dubai. Actually, Joseph, this one's for you. So I love Malta, and of course we connected there through the AIBC Summit. My hard-hitting question, I think, is that 3-4 years ago there was a lot of excitement about the new regulations, the new local partners you could work with, the experts, the virtual asset agents, I guess, whatever, I forget the name. And I remember it was being called Blockchain Island. At least from an outsider's perspective, and I could be wrong, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like that fizzled a little bit and the action has moved to where we all are now here in Dubai. I think the key is, yes, having regulation, having the expertise in your regulator to get done, and having the sort of bureaucratic bandwidth to push things through. Where is Malta in this process?
I'm really happy you asked me this question because I want to clarify the situation. So 5 years ago, Malta came up with a new regulatory framework for crypto, and this framework was advertised wrongly. So the government and service providers, I'm going to use this word, screwed it up a little bit by the way they have actually promoted it, because it was a very tough framework. But we still have around about 15 licensees that actually managed to obtain the license and are quite successful, and we have some big names. We have FalconX, which is the largest institutional broker in the world, a company valued over $8 billion, and that has American Express, Coinbase as investors. So we're talking of big fish there. We have Crypto.com, which is also quite massive. We have also some really interesting smaller operators that are doing quite well. None of them have had any issues during this crypto crisis. So I think it is working well. Added to that, now there's MiCA. And if you look at MiCA and the Maltese framework is 90% identical to MiCA. What will happen the day that MiCA comes into force? The regulator is already working with operators to take back the old license and give them the MiCA license on day one. By the afternoon, all the Maltese licensed operators will be able to passport their license all over Europe. Day one of MiCA. No other country in Europe will have the opportunity of doing so. So having a license from Malta has paid off immensely. Now, Malta is good for Europe. And the reason why, for example, we're also looking at the UAE, and we really are looking at it because we see that there's a lot of potential, is because we see that the UAE could be very interesting for outside of Europe. So if you're looking towards obtaining a license outside of Europe, the UAE is extremely interesting, I would say. And now there's a lot of choice. There's ADGM and there's also a couple of Dubai licenses. So you have the IFC and those that fall under VARA. So I think it's exciting times in this space. I think our time is up, but maybe we can have one last question. Is there any other question? No? So we'll skip the last question that I had planned because our time is up and we can move on to the next panel.